Hey friends, welcome to This Prepared Life. And today I hope you will join me as we jump into ways that you can cut your budget. I asked over on Instagram for all of you to share with me your favorite budget tips and budget prep tips. And there are over 100 responses to that question. Amazing budget prep tips. I don't think any of us are unaware of the dumpster fire that is currently the economy, inflation, rising grocery costs. So anything that we can do to cut our budget and save on expenses is really important right now. So I'm going to jump in and share with you these budget prep tips. So the first one, I've been buying ground turkey and chicken breast in bulk. Break them down into smaller portions, then vacuum seal and freeze. Meat doesn't go to waste, and I'm not throwing away money. That is a huge and great way to save. Buy in bulk and freeze or preserve or process in some way for later. A non-food item, I buy shea butter and cocoa butter in bulk for skincare products and store them in the fridge or freezer so they don't go rancid. Started doing this when I was pregnant because the cost of belly butter was insane. I melt them down in a double boiler with lanolin for diaper balm, and it works so much better than the store-bought stuff and lasts forever. Tip number 3, I love tinctures and have recently started buying bulk organic wild crafted herbs to make my own tinctures, which will save me a lot of money and support my family's health. Learning skills is so important. So learning how to make your own herbal remedies and teas and tinctures, that is a great way to jump in and save money in your budget. This is a great one. Shop at discount grocery stores or warehouses. My friend gathers about 5 to 6 families every few months, and we put together an order for bulk food from a discount food warehouse. It's food about to expire or almost expired, but still totally fine to eat. Gathering friends or family, a community of people together and going in on these large bulk purchases is a great way to save money, because the more that you purchase, typically the less it costs per ounce or per pound, whatever the item is. And I don't know about you, but I can't afford to buy like an entire pallet of something. But if I was splitting that with 5 or 6 other families, it would definitely make it fit into my budget. So that is an excellent tip. We have bought 50-pound bags of sugar and flour from the Amish store by us. Price per pound is very cheap. We vacuum sealed it all in half-gallon canning jars. That's a great way to save money. Again, buying in bulk. And if you don't know about vacuum sealing in jars, I do have a past video on how I do that with spices, but you use a jar sealer attachment, and it's really a great addition to your food storage tools. This time of year, I purchase from our local farmers market different types of winter squash that store well. I still have butternut and spaghetti squash from last season. Yes, buy in bulk, buy local, buy in season. Bar shampoo conditioner takes up less space and weight than liquids. If storing for long term, buy in bulk and vacuum seal it. Yeast stores well in the fridge. I still have some from 2020. I purchased a 5-pound bag right before because my New Year's resolution was to bake our own bread. Yay for learning skills. That year, I made it a side hustle because bread was hard to find. I like buying yeast in bulk. I buy large packages of yeast. I do store it in the freezer. I find that it lasts longer in the freezer than the fridge. And if you are unsure if your yeast is good, all you need to do is test it or proof it. And so take some of that yeast and put it into some warm water. And if it gets foamy and bubbly on the top after 5-10 minutes, then your yeast is still good. But yeast does lose its effectiveness over time. And if you're making bread with yeast that is no longer going to have that rising power, you're really not going to have a great loaf of bread. So definitely test your yeast. We started by just buying 1 to 2 extra things each shopping trip. Now we buy in bulk. Also, only buy things you regularly use. We learned this the hard way when we had to throw away several bags of expired food. I just keep a constant large stock of what we use. If you can afford it, the long-term emergency food buckets that have a shelf life of 25 years. We started the same way. We did not start our food storage by doing these massive bulk purchases. It was a very slow process. It was 1 or 2 cans of food here, maybe 1 bulk bag, and half of it went into my kitchen and half of it went into my short-term layer. Food storage and preparedness is a slow process. So how you do that and make it fit into your everyday life is important. Buy my meat in bulk at Sam's Club. Saves me gas from going to the store every week, and the price is a lot cheaper. Example is ground beef and chuck roast was $4.98 a pound, and a pound of lunch meat chicken was less than $5. I don't have a Sam's Club. I've never actually been to one. I've heard they're just like Costco. Are they just like Costco? Join a local cooperative that orders directly from the distribution centers for bulk things like organic flour, pasta, sugar, save money, and have a community event. I used to be a part of a group that did this with butter when we lived in another state, and it was great. Like every few months, they would do a large butter order. It was great discounted, and everyone got really good quality butter that way. Buy in bulk to build your storage layers. Once you have your operational layers, only buy what's on sale. Shop based on budget, not need. Think buy one, get one, manager specials, etc. This is a great way to build your pantry. And once you are at a point where you are able to look at your stock and know what you need and really shop the sales, is a great way to save money. Purchase canning jars at estate sales, rummage sales, and thrift stores to save a lot of money on them. Just make sure there are no chips or cracks, and if there are, recycle them properly. Yes, I will also add in, ask like grandma, or if you have an elderly aunt or someone who might have canning jars in their basement or in their attic. A lot of times elderly people used to can, but now maybe can't anymore. And they would be absolutely more than happy to see those jars go to someone who's going to use them. And you can then give them jars full of strawberry jam or applesauce or whatever, and they will absolutely love that the younger generation is jumping into these food preservation things that were so normal for them. All right, next tip. One of the ways we save on everyday items or preps is by checking out places like swap meets, thrift stores, and yard sales, getting items from entertainment, clothing, cookware, tools, gardening, and general purpose items, trying to save money on anything you can. Yes. We keep a list of larger items that we might want. Like, as an example, our honey extractor is a really nice honey extractor. And we keep a note where we list these larger items for different homesteading tasks that we might want. And if we see them come up in like marketplace or rummage sales, thrift stores, things like that, then we have a list of items we can look through and go, is this on our we want it list? But our honey extractor, we got it 1/3 of the cost. It was like new from a beekeeper who was getting out of beekeeping. So great way to save money on some of these items that might be more expensive. Save excess produce in the freezer and wait till winter to can it. Added bonus is it adds heat and humidity to your home in the winter. I love this one. Saving different produce to can later is a huge part of how I do preservation, because harvest season is so busy and some things need done right away. Other things you can freeze and wait, like as an example, tomatoes. I don't know how many bags of tomatoes in my freezer right now that I am going to turn into tomato sauce here soon. So hit the subscribe button if you want to catch that process when I share about making tomato sauce from frozen tomatoes. But yes, save that excess produce and can it later in the fall or the winter when you have more time on your hands. If you are new to canning, start with pickling. This is an easier process and gets you ready for stepping into pressure canning or canning meats, etc. Yes, pickling is a great way to jump into water bath canning. Also, making jam is an excellent starter. Applesauce is an excellent starter for water bath canning. Leave early when driving anywhere and drive in the slow lane. Being fuel efficiently driving saves a ton of gas. I am a grandma driver. I drive so slow, drives Joe insane. Joe does not drive slow. And you get to your location early. Yes. Okay. Next tip. I was able to get free apples off of Craigslist. Yes. Check Craigslist. Check Marketplace. There are so many people who have fruit trees on their property and they either one, don't know how to do anything with that food, so it is just going bad, or maybe they're elderly and they can't do anything with that food anymore. And it just makes a mess as it's falling on the ground that someone has to clean up, which leads into the next tip. When you see a loaded fruit tree in a person's yard, ask if you can pick one bag for them and one for yourself. Free food. Keep an eye out and collect free firewood left behind at campsites, roadsides, neighbors cutting down and trimming trees, etc. Once you develop an eye for free firewood, you begin to see it everywhere. That's a great tip. I would just check on the legality of collecting firewood at campsites. Like if it's a campground, I'm not sure if you could go in and do that. And I know in our area, of North Idaho, you can get a permit to go out and cut firewood in the forest. I don't know the exact rules on that, but I know it is a really affordable option and way to get firewood, and it also cleans up the forest. Look at fallingfruit.org, community gardens, etc. They will let you pick for free and people can put their fruit trees, etc. on them. Also, old parks in a lot of areas have walnut trees and other heirloom food trees that are often free for the taking. So much food just rots into the ground because people are afraid to ask about taking it. It's amazing what you can find locally if you just look and ask. Joe and I have noticed as we are driving around the amount of fruit trees that go unharvested in our area is huge. And I think it's probably like that everywhere. But yeah, just stop and ask. What is the worst thing someone can do? They can say no. You're not out anything but your time and stopping and asking. So definitely look around as you're driving through your neighborhoods. All right, next tip. We make our own maple syrup. Saves so much. Also, bulk purchasing is the way to go. I get 5 and 6 gallon buckets to store those bulk goods in from a local food processing plant. And Donna's 5-can challenge is so smart. Yes. Check around in your area for places where you can get buckets, because a lot of times big distribution centers or bakeries or restaurants are just going to throw them away. And Donna's 5-can challenge is a hashtag over on Instagram. It's hashtag number 5-can challenge. And that's Donna at Hoopy Homestead. She is a great account to follow if you're over on Instagram. I just started milling my own flour at home. I was initially motivated to do this because the unmilled wheat berries have such a king shelf life. Wheat berries are an amazing food storage food, but you got to know how to use them. As I've studied more to learn how to bake with it, I've learned much about the health benefits. One thing I love, I only mill what I need for the recipe I'm making. No leftover flour to go bad. Plus, super fun to acquire a new skill. Yes, skills are so important. And what this person is talking about with milled flour is once you take that wheat berry and you grind it, the oils are then released. And so that flour will go rancid faster than if you were just storing the wheat berries. So you really should only grind what you're going to use at one time. It will last for a little while, but it's not going to last in an extended amount of time. Cook from scratch. Yes, absolutely. I always say the number one thing that you can do to improve your food storage is to learn kitchen skills. Learn the herbs growing wildly or that are easy to grow in your area and how to use them. Yes, learn how to forage, get a book, take a class. There's a lot of resources out there for learning what is in your local area. Let your garden produce seeds and use them to spread and share next spring. Yes, getting into seed saving is a great way to take your gardening to just that next level. Grow your own garden, then can preserve the produce you've been able to grow. That is a great tip. Let's see, this was another one about asking people to harvest trees. So we've got multiple people do that. This person says, I've never had someone say no when I've asked. Most people are happy not to deal with the mess. It is such a mess. If you have never had a fruit tree in your yard, at the end of the season, if you haven't harvested that, everything falls to the ground and you really should be cleaning that up to avoid the mess, the smell, and then insects. All right, next tip. We're on tip number 31. This is a good time of year to plant trees. It's about the same to buy an apple tree as it is to buy a bushel of apples. I will say that depends on where you live. Apple trees here in North Idaho, when they're full price, we're looking at $100 to $150. They're a little crazy. If you have the room to plant one, you can keep fruit trees small by buying dwarf varieties and pruning, so you really don't need a huge amount of space to grow a couple of bushels of fruit. Yes, there's so many different types of trees. I mean, we have our full-size trees, we have dwarf trees, and I'm trying to think of everything in our garden is a dwarf or a semi-dwarf in variety. But one tree is going to give you a lot of fruit in 5 to 10 years. Trees do take a long time to establish and mature, and also if you're renting, look into the smallest varieties, the dwarf trees, because a lot of those can be grown in pots. We used to grow a Asian pear tree in a pot that we moved from rental to rental. And while we didn't get bushels, we did get a good amount of Asian pears for fresh eating off of that tree in a pot. So even if you are renting, you can grow fruit on your rental property. All right, here's another one about foraging. Forage food right in your own yard. What looks like weeds can be nutritious food. I will say I have not gotten into the whole let's eat some dandelion thing. Saving seeds from the foods I enjoy. Yes, seed saving is amazing. Here's another one about seed saving, and this person says, they are most excellent grown as microgreens and a refreshing taste of summer in the gloom of winter. Meal plan and only go to the store for groceries once a month. It teaches you how to conserve and stretch your groceries and to be creative in your meals. 15, 20 years ago, I would meal plan monthly, and I don't as much anymore right now just because our kitchen works a little differently than it did back then and I grocery shop differently. But I used to meal plan monthly because then I could look at all of the different recipes and go, okay, what can I stretch? And okay, I'm making a chicken on this day, so I'm going to make a soup the next day. Looking at your meals as a big picture on a calendar really allows you to plan better for all of those different leftovers that you might have. Don't use recipes that require unusual ingredients. I used to always buy a specialty item and waste half of it. Yes, that does make it difficult. Another suggestion would be, like, if you really like a recipe and it's a staple in your family's rotation and it does contain some specialty ingredient, find another recipe that also uses that specialty ingredient so that it is not going bad. Or depending on what the specialty ingredient is, figure out a way to preserve it so that maybe you are portioning it out into the freezer so that you have it available to make that recipe over and over again. If I'm making something that needs the oven, I'll either make a double batch, so eat one, freeze one, or add a tray of muffins in as well. This has come in so handy at the moment as we are preparing for an overseas move. So I've been shopping our freezers for 90% of our daily meals. Preparedness takes many forms. It does. Preparedness is not always bunkers and gas masks. Preparedness is every day. It is not running out of an ingredient when you are making meals. It is having the supplies on hand should you have a family emergency. It is being able to shop your freezer when you are preparing to move overseas. So that is a great one. Anytime we have leftover chicken or beef that I know we won't eat the next day, I cut it into small pieces and freeze it. Then when I'm making pie, I pull the frozen meat and make chicken or beef pot pie. This is an excellent tip. Remember to freeze those leftovers. If we have food in our freezer, like this person said, and we know we're not going to eat it, freeze it. And mark that down on however you inventory your freezers so that you know it's in there, because you're going to get a second meal out of that ingredient. And if you have a freeze dryer, I like to, cube up leftover chicken or beef and freeze dry it, because then I don't have to worry about it going bad in my freezer. But if you don't have a freeze dryer, then just freeze it and mark that on your inventory. All right, tip number 39, always keep freezer bags on hand so in a time of need you can freeze leftovers and nothing goes to waste. Make sure your freezer and refrigerators are organized. Yes, mine are a disaster right now. This can be done using plastic bins that can be stacked on top of each other. Meats can be stored in heavy-duty reusable grocery bags with a handle, so you can just pull it out of the freezer. That is a great idea. I like to use the cardboard banker boxes because they stack really well, and I can get a lot of, all of our meat comes from a local farm, so it's in the white butcher packages, and it's really easy to just stack those into those banker boxes. Buy from local fresh produce markets when in season. Preserve that food. During the cold months, shop your local bulk stores and preserve that by canning, sealing in Mylar, and food grade buckets. Yes, if you are unfamiliar with Mylar and putting food in buckets, I do have a video all about choosing types of buckets, so you can check that out. It's in my preparedness playlist here on YouTube. A big thing for me was learning how to can meats. I do small batches, like 2 to 3 quart jars, totally worth the $70 pressure cooker from Ace Hardware. Pressure canning was probably one of the most intimidating things that I learned, and once you jump in and do it, you are going to be so surprised at how easy it is. I would check the manual of your pressure canner because some have a minimum amount of jars that you can put into them. I think mine is 4. I can't have less than 4 jars in my pressure canner, or it can impact the processing and the amount of pressure. So definitely check your pressure canner. And a pressure canner doesn't have to be expensive. I have a non-dial. I have a weighted gauge pressure canner, and it's only available in stores at Walmart. And I think when I got it, it was $50. I think it's probably in the $80 to $100 range now, because like everything else, inflation, prices of all of these things have gone up. It's a great beginner level pressure canner, but it's also the one that I use regularly. So you don't have to buy a $300-400 pressure canner to start pressure canning. Freeze tomato paste in ice cube trays, or if you have a freeze dryer, freeze dry it in tablespoon portions. This is excellent. I can never use the entire, even though they're tiny, tiny little cans of tomato paste, I never use the whole thing. And I actually use a cookie scooper, and I scoop it onto a cookie sheet, and then I freeze those in deli style freezer containers, which are by far my favorite freezer containers. I will link them in the description, but that cookie scooper is great for tomato paste. Tip number 43, I make big pots of homemade soup since I am already chopping and getting the kitchen dirty. I eat it once or twice and freeze the rest in super cubes, a cup at a time. Super cubes are silicone freezer trays, and they're really high quality and they're good. They're sturdy. I will also link those in the description. I have several different sizes of those. Anytime I want to have soup, I'll go take a frozen cube out of the freezer, cook some rice or noodles, and I have a delicious homemade meal in minutes. Making soup in bulk batches is a great way to have easy meals in your freezer. And anytime we have leftover soup, it gets put into those deli style round containers that I talked about a little bit ago. And we just label what it is. And I always have a supply of soup in the freezer. Joe will eat a lot of soup for lunches, but I also every now and then will just make a random dinner with like 3, 4, 5 different types of soup. Like if I have one freezer container of each and everyone picks what kind of soup they want, I might serve that with some fresh bread or a salad. And it's a good way to clean out the freezer, but also save your leftovers and stretch your grocery budget. Soup is also, like, depending on the type of soup you make, soup is also really inexpensive to make. Short-term prep tip: when making a meal that can easily freeze, make 2 or 3 and add it to the freezer. Pull those out on busier days when you can't get to the store for extra ingredients. Yes, some meals freeze better than others, and having freezer meals ready to go. I have a dry erase sheet that magnets to the fridge. On Sunday, I write down all the things that need to be used from the fridge, freezer, and pantry so we don't waste. I make our meals based on what's on the list. That is an excellent way to cut your budget, not have to come up with a new meal, use the ingredients you already have in there. You know, like the person earlier who mentioned dicing up chicken or beef leftovers. If you have some kind of inventory of what is in your freezers, then you're going to be able to easily look at that and know, oh, I can make these meals this week. Stock what you eat and eat what you stock. Yes. That way you don't end up with a bunch of long expired foods and you actually know how to cook the things you have stocked. Not to mention, you won't end up with a bunch of food you don't even like. Yes, I always say prep what you eat so you can eat what you prep. Keep a running inventory list. We already talked about this a little bit. Set up so you have a need to repurchase column. It's an automatic grocery list. That's a great idea. I have saved so much money by doing this. I'm not buying what I don't need or use. And do this in whatever way that works for you and your brain. Each of us is going to inventory a little bit differently. So I have a marker board in the basement that I use as our inventory. And anytime anyone takes things from the basement, which is our short-term layer, they write it on the marker board. And then I know that goes onto my grocery list because I can't really expect my teenagers to be digging through a spreadsheet. They really need an easy option. Freeze your homemade chicken stock in ice cube trays, then put it in Ziploc baggies. You'll always have stock ready to go. Yes, or use the silicone cubes that we mentioned earlier. I've been finding copycat recipes of our favorite takeout places and making our own fast food at home. This is a great way to save money. Yes, it is an excellent way to save money. Find multiple recipes that use the same basic ingredients. You can change flavor profiles easily. When you have a lot of recipes using the same main ingredients, you can focus on bulk buying those and having a plan for them. Yes, we eat a lot of the same things, like our food storage. Sometimes I look at it and I feel like, wow, there's not a lot of variety here, but there is a lot of variety because I know how to cook it in many different ways. I have themed weeks to make better use of batch prep and extend the use of any special or fresh produce. Yes, like when we used to have to buy herbs like cilantro. You need a tiny little bit for a meal and then the rest of it goes bad. So having a themed week, that's great. Tex-Mex week might be peppers, corn, cilantro, and black beans. And Indian could be cauliflower, rice, coconut milk, and lentils. At the end of the week, all or most of your leftovers will have a similar flavor profile, which makes for great soups. I've been learning how to not waste food. I try not to buy stuff that I won't use, or I figure out how to use produce up before it spoils. Freezing it, making soups and casseroles, smoothies, etc. I'm not that big with canning and stuff yet, but I'm doing my best not to waste stuff. Good for you. Good for you for doing your best. And that's all that we can do. If you don't know how to can yet, do what you can do, because we can all do something. Eat at home rather than out. Make coffee at home rather than buying it out. Gosh, I feel like you're calling me out on this one. I do have a going out to coffee addiction that kind of goes on, but I do make my own coffee at home. Yes, eating at home, like I said earlier, the number one thing that you can do to improve your food storage is to learn kitchen skills. Knowing how to make things at home is going to save you so much money in your budget, not only because it is cheaper to buy ingredients, but it is cheaper to eat at home than it is to eat out. Especially lately, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I feel like the cost of eating out has just dramatically risen. So stay tuned for part 2. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next issue of your budget prep tips.